The night I turned 30, I felt young. Most of my friends are a couple years older than me, and those that aren't tend to have kids. Age is just a number, and all numbers are relative. Drinking in the same basement pub where I celebrate every year made me feel like I was still well within my 20s, and watching my social circles cross-pollinate provided enough distraction to not think about my age. Not only did I feel young, but I also felt like a cool dude. As more people came and the night got hazy, I found myself in a nearby park in a circle of smokers in the dark. Conversations had fractured into cliques, but we were all tied together by a joint. Things were good. I was content. As I smoked and yapped, however, I noticed an interloper in the dark. Without a street lamp, I couldn't make out the face, but he was shorter than anyone I knew. He didn't touch the weed, just kinda stood around, listening. Figured him for a friend of a friend and left it at that. As we returned to the party, however, I decided to have one last cigarette on the well-lit street. The light of the pub revealed the interloper. He was most certainly not a friend of a friend. "How old are you?" I asked.
20.
He lied. "No, really, how old are you?" I asked. Again.
18.
He said. The boy looked no more than 14.
I'm 16.
He said, looking embarrassed.
Can we leave it at that?
"What are you doing here?" I asked.
You guys seemed like a cool group of people. Thought I'd hang out.
When I was 16, I too drunkenly stumbled into random crowds of strangers and hung out. I can promise you, I would never try to infiltrate a group of people that was old and boring. On the night I turned 30, I felt young and like a cool dude. A week later, I found myself at a 34th birthday barbecue party. A friend of mine who couldn't make my bash was working the grill. As he served up a burger, he offered some advice.
Don't sweat turning 30,
he said.
I'm 38, and I'm loving it. 20s are nice, but once you're 30, you at least kind of have your shit together. You stop caring what other people think of you, you have experience, you can handle life better.
I'm not sweating anything, I said. 30 is the new 20, 40 is the new 30, and 16 is no longer sweet. Welcome to the century.
I wouldn't say it's the same,
he said, transferring the meat to the bun.
Your 30s are different, but it's a good kind of different.
A couple weeks later, I would learn that, indeed, 30 doesn't always feel like 20. I work in tourism. I wear a backpack to work. I'm no stranger to an achy shoulder or spine. That particular morning, however, as I waited for my subway to take me to the old town, the pain felt novel. It felt intense and urgent, and the big red numbers above the rails let me know that I didn't have forever to deal with it. 4 minutes on the timer. I figured I'd sit down and stretch it out. No dice. 2 minutes on the timer. There's a small pharmacy in my backpack. I pop an ibuprofen and grab some Tiger Balm, yet the aches do not relent. 1 minute on the timer. The subway's almost there. If I don't get up, I'll be late to work. It's a double shift. There's a crowd of tourists waiting. I take out my phone and start to scroll around for someone who could take my tours. The subway arrives. That screechy sound of Prague's arteries gives me a burst of energy. I figure I'll get better on the train. I hope I'll get better on the train. While the buildings above me are commie blocks, my back burns. By the time the buildings above me turn 14th century Gothic, it turns numb. When I pop open my umbrella at the meeting point, I feel somewhere between functional and fine. I feel fine, but I live with the knowledge that maybe, after 30, your body comes up with novel ways to betray you. But it's not all bad. Though my body shows the signs of age, so does my bank account. After years of saving, scouring real estate listings, and a bit of tasteful financial fraud, I managed to secure a mortgage and buy an apartment. It cost me most of my worldly possessions, and the nebulous price of the reconstruction quietly chips away at my composure over the months to come, but I'm content. I'll have a cozy place of my own. If real estate trends continue, I can sell it at a tidy profit in a decade or two. Definitely couldn't swing that in my 20s. I am unfamiliar with the area, so I take a stroll. A stone's throw away from my impending home sits a nice little hipster pub. I walk in, order a beer, tip the bartender, and ask, "What's this neighborhood like?"
"Oh, it's a fantastic place to raise kids,"
the man says as he pours my drink.
"There's an elementary school around the corner, a bunch of playgrounds, a sports hall, and there's always some sort of family-friendly event happening in the park over there."
I don't have kids, I tell him, almost apologetically.
"Oh,"
he says, measuring me from behind his thick-rimmed glasses.
"Well, it's a good place to get fucked up too. Plenty of bars, plenty of parties. You'll love it here."
He's not wrong. As the reconstructions drag on, I find myself roaming around the neighborhood with higher frequency. Every time I wander, I fall in love with Nusle just a little bit more. I find myself sitting by the Voltava with a round of blueberry beers and a discount Model UN. A Canadian, a Gambian, a German, 2 Serbian sisters, and a French girl with a nose ring I can't comprehend. I like to grab beers with the tourists after the name badge is off, and this group is no different. We swap tales on a cobblestone while the sun sets and the Prague castle lights up. The more we drink, the more the conversation drifts towards relationships. Nothing new under the sun, even when the moon is out. One of the Serbian twins asks for opinions about long-distance relationships. Being a veteran of a couple, I kick in my 10 cents. Make sure there's a concrete end date. Only do it if you're sure. Discuss in person, but only commit after you get a feel for the distance. Don't sweat it if it doesn't work out. You're young. C'est la vie.
"This is so cool,"
the Serbian says, in that pseudo-American accent most Balkan youth have these days.
"It feels like I'm hanging out with, like, one of the cool professors after a lecture."
Jesus, I say. You're making me feel ancient. How old are you?
20. But I didn't mean it in, like, a bad way.
Much younger than I presumed. I don't bother asking her twin sister. I turn to the ragged-looking Canadian who seems much closer to my age. Turns out he's 18. Not old, just on a bunch of edibles. The Gambian is 19, and so is the American. The German is 21. Only the French girl, with the incomprehensible medal draped across the bridge of her nose, is close to my age. She's 25.
"I meant it in a good way,"
the Serbian repeats, perhaps prompted by all the chipper youth draining from my face.
"It feels like hanging out with, like, a cool professor. Like the teacher that goes to university parties and smokes weed."
I think of the lecturers who would drink with us back in my college days and of the overwhelming divorce energy they carried with them. It bums me out. Luckily, I have a small pharmacy in my backpack. By the river, with the castle all lit up and pretty, I smoke a joint with the youngins. A couple weeks later, August 24th, 2024 to be specific, I wake up to an unpleasant surprise. This time it's not an achy back. This particular betrayal from my body can't be fixed with ibuprofen and Tiger Balm. After a sleepless 2 weeks, I go into surgery. They take out what is, most likely, a tumor. Are any other internal organs planning on stabbing me in the back? The next episode of this medical drama isn't dropping for another month. The run up to the surgery is rough. Swaying between hope and despair leaves me sleepless and without appetite. Longest 2 weeks of my 30-odd year existence. The moment the final verdict comes down, however, the scales fall from my eyes. This isn't a negotiation. No way of charming my way out of this one. I'm going under the knife in a couple hours. The big prize for this game show is an extended life expectancy. Spending a prolonged period of time at the hospital sucks, but I make peace with reality. Recovery is also rough. The incision is made in my lower abdomen, so it's difficult to get out of bed. All the self-reliance I've gathered throughout my adulthood is put on pause, and I'm reliant on others to bring me ice packs and food. It also hurts to laugh, which really sucks. When prompted with the question of whether you have or had cancer, a giggle comes in pretty handy. It sucks, but I persevere. By the time the doctors take the stitches out, gut laughs from gallows humor are as joyous as they should be. Sitting in the back of an Uber on a sunny Monday afternoon, I find myself gestating the physical sensation of a CT scan. When they run you through the machine, they pump a bit of iodine into your bloodstream to make it easier to spot any tumorous interlopers.
You'll feel very hot in a moment.
The technician said as she administered the chems.
Don't panic.
True to her word, after a couple of seconds, a wave of discomfort rushed through my arm, to my stomach, and up through my chest. Closest thing I compare to is the physical sensation of embarrassment. The sort of hot shame you get when you fumble your words in front of a group of people you're desperately trying to impress. Sitting in the back of that Uber, riding the speedway that hugs the limits of ancient Prague, returning from yet another novel medical procedure, I realize I haven't felt that sensation for years. I still care of how people perceive me, but I think I'm well past the point of getting hot flashes because of the popular kids. Your 30s are different, but a good kind of different. My birthday is at the end of September, but I feel like I finished off my spin around the sun a couple of weeks early. Back of that Uber, trying to detangle the IV bandage from my arm hair, everything clicks into place. 30 isn't the new 20. It's its own little animal. You might not jump as high, but you sure as hell get better at landing. You have experience. You can handle life better. If I were to be dealing with this medical mystery at 25, I'd be losing my mind. Ditto with the reconstruction bill stress. My 20s were filled with confusion and anguish over shit that I can barely remember. I'm pretty certain I'll be arm wrestling Alzheimer's for this particular chapter of my life. I'm 30, or I guess now 31, and with all things considered, I'm doing fine. Definitely couldn't swing that in my 20s.